Hey legends, welcome to Hellmouth Hotline. I'm your host Rodney Stewart. We're getting into Friday the 13th part 6, Jason Lives. Now, this one here for me, in all fairness, this is one I don't think I watched up to this point. There's absolutely no part of this movie that I can recall whatsoever going into it. But, yes, after the previous movie, it was just what the doctor ordered. It really was. The last one, they were sort of setting up, and the original storyline for this movie had Tommy Jarvis becoming the series' new antagonist, and it ended off with him with the hockey mask on and with the knife in his hand, and that's what they were planning to do. But the fans didn't like it, and yes, they decided to bring Jason back, the Jason, and they did it in great style in this movie. Have to say, glad to see it. I wasn't a huge fan of the previous movie, has to be said, and that idea of switching it up and becoming like a copycat killer just didn't work for me. So thankfully they didn't do it. So yes, this came out 1986. Budget of 19.4 million on, sorry, a budget of 3 million, and it made back 19.4 million. So as I did say, these movies were a cash cow back in the day, and yes, the fans, they were going to show up for them no matter what the movie was going to be like. But genuinely, I feel that if they had have went with that idea of switching it up from Jason, probably would have killed the series off in short order. And yes, again, thankfully they didn't do it. And excuse me, I'm kind of bunged up tonight, so forgive me if I trip over my words here, but there's a huge, big, giant word in my notes here that I'm looking forward to trying to say, because it's getting fairly close to bedtime for me, saying as I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, and it is now, about 20 past 8 as I'm starting to record this, as it's online for 9 o'clock. So I'm tired. There's a heat wave happening here in Northern Ireland at the moment, and I've been working on the blast freezer all day, so coming out from like minus goodness knows what to huge temperatures from Northern Ireland. Kind of bunged up now because of it. But anyway, digress, talking nonsense. 3 minutes in, let's get into this here review. Yes, again, what I do like about these movies is it keeps a little bit of continuity going. They do try their hardest to start off where the previous movie left off, and this one here, some time after the events at the halfway house in the previous movie. Tommy Jarvis again is in this movie. He's released from the institution that he was in. Even though he's still having hallucinations of Jason, who he of course killed whenever he was a kid, he gets out and he returns to Crystal Lake, which in this movie has now been renamed Forest Green, and what he's planning on doing is confronting his fears by going to the graveyard. One of his friends is with him, this guy Alan. They find Jason's grave. There's a thunderstorm happening, of course, horror movie, they're building it up nicely, and Tommy's idea is to cremate Jason's body to make damn sure that he's never going to come back. And yes, they dig him up, open the coffin, there's the corpse on there, and of course Tommy starts having these flashbacks to the last time he had an encounter with Jason, and he grabs hold of this metal fence prong thing and impales Jason's dead body with it, going crazy, like just whack, die, go to hell, more or less, that sort of deal. Excuse any sound that you're probably going to hear outside the office. It is fairly close to a road here, and there's a lot of stuff happening, but I'm hoping I've got the settings in this desk set up properly, it'll cut that out. So hopefully you're not hearing anything. But if you are, I do apologise. Yeah. So Tommy, he impales the corpse of Jason with this metal fence post, and a couple of lightning bolts strike the post, and that causes Jason to come back to life as an immortal revenant, essentially. He's going to be unkillable from here on. And Jason, he proceeds to kill the friend of Tommy, and puts on the hockey mask, which Tommy just happened to bring with him. Because that's what the one thing that you're kind of thinking at the beginning of these movies, how the hell is he going to get hold of this hockey mask again? And they do work out a way of him getting it and putting it back on. So he's up out of the grave, and he's ready to take out whoever gets in his way to just getting into the standard sort of Jason movie, essentially. Tommy runs, he gets to the sheriff's office to try and warn the police of Jason's return, but he's arrested, thrown into the clink, and they're not going to listen to him. The sheriff, Mike Garris, he's aware of Tommy's institutionalization. There you go, just one I'll slip up, but I got it. Institutionalization. That is a huge word that I don't think I've ever said anything longer than that, besides supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. But then is that even a word? But shut up, Rodney, just talk about the movie. Yes, the sheriff, he reckons this guy's hallucinating that Jason's returned. Back out on the road, camp counsellors Darren and Elizabeth get lost looking for Camp Forest Green, and they're stopped by Jason, who murders them both. Just, as I say, Jason's up and about, he's going to do his thing. Again, we get that reworked formula of camp counsellors getting taken out. Yes, it's sheer bubblegum for the brain, these movies, that is. Like, you don't get into these movies expecting Shakespeare, do you? You get in there to see what the heck Jason's going to do this time. I think this movie here in particular was like Freddy Krueger. The further through the series we went on Nightmare on Elm Street, the more of a celebrity status Freddy Krueger achieved. And I think by the time we got to this part of the Friday the 13th series, this is where Jason started to get that same sort of status. In my humble opinion, watching him back in this one. The following morning, the sheriff's daughter Megan and a couple of her friends, they arrived at the police station to report Darren and Elizabeth missing. Tommy tries to warn them about Jason, but he's now considered an urban legend. Everybody knows the story of Jason, but was he actually a real person? Nobody seems to know. And they're doing their hardest, local authorities, to cover up anything to do with him. They have renamed the town and everything, trying to move away from the history of Crystal Lake and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, of course, everybody keeps ignoring the warnings that Tommy's given them, though Megan, she starts to grow attached to him. Back in the woods, Jason happens upon a corporate paintball game. There's a good bit of humour and comedy, dark comedy, I should say, in this sequence for this corporate company. They're out like in a team building exercise, and they're having a paintball game, and Jason turns up and he kills all of them. 3 members by decapitation, crushing the 4th member's face into a tree, and dismembering the 5th member. So yes, the effects are pretty damn good in this movie as well, has to be said. He then steals a machete from one of them. So of course that's the 2 standard things, the mask and the machete, and you're always wondering how he's going to get hold of these. If he doesn't have them, if he has to acquire them, where's he going to get them at? So that's what happens. He gets the machete here. In the process of discovering he now possesses superhuman strength as a result of his resurrection. So Jason's he's thick as champ, but now that he's got superhuman power behind him, um, yeah, that's up in the odds in a big, big, bad way. Camp Forest Green, children arrive. And this is the first time now in the series where you actually get small children involved in the main story of what's happening. Like every other movie was more or less the camp counselors turning up to get the camp ready and whatnot, and more or less taken out before like the summer break or whatever started. But in this movie, you've got the counsellors there, you've got the children as well. So you're wondering what's going to happen here, because the body count just seems to rise and rise with every movie. So where are we at? Yes, children arrive, teens do their best to run the camp without Darren and Elizabeth. Meanwhile, the sheriff decides to escort Tommy out of his jurisdiction due to his influence on his daughter, and he's just like, get the hell out of my town. I don't want to see your face in here again, and if you come back, I'll lock you up and throw away the key, more or less. On the way, Tommy tries to make a run for Jason's grave, but finds that the caretaker has covered it up to deny responsibility for it being dug up in the first place, and that's more or less. This is reinforcing the opinion that the police have on Tommy, that he's dreamed all this up. There's no Jason, it's all in his head and whatnot. But Hugh's body is buried in place of Jason's body. So that's the kid at the beginning of the movie, Tommy's friend. Jason chucked him into the grave, more or less, and then the caretaker seen it, and he just like, I'm going to cover this up, and if there's who cares what body's on there, more or less. So Tommy, he's then handcuffed and escorted out of the town by the sheriff. Tells him never to return. That night, Jason murders the caretaker of the graveyard and a nearby couple who witness the murder. Meanwhile, Gort goes out to have sex with the girl named Nicola Parsley. Jason kills the two of them. As I say, it's all standard issue Friday the 13th stuff for the vast majority of these movies. Bubblegum for the brain. Horror fans eat it up. I've actually, at this point of recording this podcast, I couldn't wait. I rented them all. I wasn't well on Monday and Tuesday of this week, so I took time off work and got on to Amazon Prime Video, just rented all around me, and I've actually watched them all up until, and I've literally just finished Freddy vs. Jason. So I'm dying to get through these movies now, but I'm going to be doing them on a weekly basis every Friday. But I'm eating them up, loving them. That's good stuff. The sheriff's men start to find victims' bodies, and the sheriff immediately implicates Tommy and the murders, believing he has gone insane, imagining Jason. So the sheriff is kind of holding on to that idea that they were originally going to go off that Tommy was indeed the murderer in this movie. So, even though they've brought Jason back, they're still holding a few of those threads there from the original idea. Tommy contacts Megan, this is the sheriff's daughter, and convinces her to help him lure Jason back to Crystal Lake. Meanwhile, Jason makes his way to the camp, kills another couple of the counsellors, but refrains from harming the children. Meanwhile, Tommy and Megan are pulled over by the police, and her father's there too, despite Megan's alibi that she was with Tommy whenever these murders was happening. The sheriff still doesn't believe him to be innocent and arrests him. He then goes to the camp to investigate, and Tommy and Megan manage to trick one of the deputies and escape. Jason at the camp kills the two deputies, and he takes out the sheriff as well. Yeah, so big body count in this movie. Jason, then he's coming up towards the end of the movie. He's getting ready to kill Megan when Tommy calls to him from the lake. He's on a little boat out there. The idea he has, and it's, I've seen the little toys that have been advertised on Facebook there, nearly every other year on the lead up to Halloween. It's like a little statue for like a fish tank, and it's Jason Voorhees chained to the rock, so you can stick it into the bottom of your fish tank. And this is the movie that comes from. So that's the idea: to lure Jason out into the water, chain him up to this rock, sink him to the bottom of the lake, and hopefully he'll never come back again. Apparently, Tommy calls him to the lake. Apparently, remembering his killer, Jason goes after Tommy instead. My notes are absolutely shocking because I just read that back and it doesn't look like it's making any sense whatsoever. But anyway, Jason goes after Tommy. Tommy's attacking the boat in the middle of the lake. He does manage to eventually get the boulder around Jason's neck to trap him, but Jason fights back. Of course, he's not going to go down without a fight. He's holding Tommy underwater long enough to more or less drown him. Megan rushes out to save him, but she's nearly killed when Jason grabs her leg. He's at the bottom of the lake, stuck to this rock, but he's high enough up that he can grab hold of her feet. She turns the boat's motor on, this little motorboat, and the motor starts cutting Jason's neck and throat, and he lets her go, and this more or less knocks him out. Let's just say, like, this is Jason Voorhees. He has been supernaturally resurrected by lightning at the beginning of the movie, and he's not going to be taken out too easily. So yeah, but he's out long enough for them to escape. She takes Tommy back to the shore, does mouth to mouth on him, gets him woke up, and at the end Tommy says it's finally over and that Jason is home. So Jason is shown to be still alive at the bottom of the lake, anchored to this rock, waiting for another opportunity to come back again. It is tasty horror. I think for me, having watched all of them now, I think I would actually put this as probably my favourite out of the Friday the 13th movies. And it was definitely shared in some of the other info that I've been looking up on it here. It says Jason Lives was the first in the series to receive some positive reception from the critics since the original. In the years since its release, its self-referential humour and numerous instances of breaking the fourth wall have been praised for prefiguring Kevin Williamson's Scream series. Yeah, Jason Lives is considered a fan favourite in the series. Have to agree with that. In addition to receiving positive notice from horror movie historians, it grossed $19.4 million at the US box office and a budget of $3 million. And of course, the next movie in the series is going to be The New Blood, so you're going to get that next Friday. But yes, I've got my own opinions on that movie, but for me, this one here was definitely one of the high points in the series. I absolutely loved it. And, I'm not the biggest horror fan. It's not, and again, if you haven't been listening to the podcast long enough to get much details about me, and back in the day, excuse the noise outside the office once again, if you can hear that, back in the day, me and a few friends would have got together at the weekends. We would have rented out some movies, we would have sat and had a few beers on a Friday night or Saturday night, and we would sit and watch 3 or 4 movies and, just have a bit of fun. And for the most part, horror movies was coming in this environment, but it was never really my go-to growing up as a kid and early teenage years. Like, whenever we were doing this, you're talking, I was like 19, 20 years old at the time, and that's really when we started to delve in deeper to these sorts of things. But when you're watching it in that environment, if you have a group of friends around you, there's a few beers involved, you're not really concentrating on the movie. Really, at the end of the day, you're just having a bit of fun. But yes, so I've ducked in and out of them. For me, my go-tos were like the old school horror movies, like, like Dracula, Frankenstein, the classic Universal monsters, as you call them, and of course the Hammer series. That's more or less, like, that's all sort of tame stuff for the most part, most of it. But you're getting into the early 80s and movies like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street was a wee bit darker and more real in a way than some of those other old movies. But and having said that, there, if you really do take a chance and look back at some of the stuff that was coming out in the 80s, if you even look at some of the 80s cartoons, like, there was some dark stuff on there that you really wouldn't be out of place in a horror movie. But anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying I'm enjoying this podcast just for the chance of actually getting into some classic horror movies and checking them out properly once and for all without any distractions. And for me, Jason Lives was a great watch, and that's definitely one that I will not skip over if I'm scanning through this series of movies. For me, they were getting fairly repetitive in a way. As I say, standard stuff. When you get into a Jason movie, he pops up and he's killing camp counselors, more or less, around Crystal Lake. And the first three movies were very, very similar in tone and what happens in them. But as I say, bubblegum for the brain. And of course, they started to try and change it up a little bit. And the change in the previous movie was just a change too far. But thankfully they fixed that for this movie. And it's great. Absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen Jason Lives, I would definitely highly recommend this one out of the entire series. Right, that's going to do it for me tonight. I have to get this. I've got about 22 minutes to get this edited and put online. These episodes of Hellmouth Hotline are supposed to pick up Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. GMT, so I'm going to get that sorted now. Guys, stay safe. I will talk to you in the next episode. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.